Hello, MGTOW Nation. This is the Dark Knight. Welcome to the Batcave. So I'm going to start again by just going over some comments. So, Gray Phantom. I had an argument recently with a couple of coworkers. It was based on statistical data versus anecdotal experience, and it wasn't about anything except arguing what the difference was between anecdotal experiences and statistics. He insisted, well, in my own personal experience, to which I replied, that's not a statistic, that's an anecdote. If you offer an actual number, like 3 in 4 dentists recommended Colgate, that would be a statistic. But if you're saying that something happened to you, that's not a statistic, that's an anecdote. Dark Knight, you say you're educating statistics. Am I interpreting the semantics correctly? In a sense, yeah, you are. I mean, moreover, he says, okay, I have a personal experience. Okay, that means that he has an experimental replicate of n equals 1. And experiment n equals the experiment. Okay, so that being said, since he has one experience showing such and such, okay, that is not statistically significant. You need to have a larger sample size of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 experiments that show the same result, and then you can put it through a student's t-test, a two-tailed t-test, and that becomes statistically significant. Saying that something happened to you one time is not significant because there's a high probability that that was one unique event in the whole universe. So, again, his anecdote is a statistic of n equals 1, and will not hold up in any type of t-test to be statistically significant. In order for something to be statistically significant, as you've pretty much pointed out to him, you need a larger experimental sample group of, say at this point, across multiple people showing the same experimental result. And that's just, a lot of people, especially when they shame on brain is like, well, not all women are like that, or, well, I had this one experience this one time. Oh, that's cool. And I saw a mermaid out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but no one else has seen this mermaid, so it is highly unlikely that my experience is going to be replicated and that we can actually prove that mermaids are real. Just because something happened to you one time does not mean that it is a general rule. So you were pretty much right in the semantics. Someone asked me, Daniel Roberts, hey Dark Knight, how is your brother doing? So just to give you guys a quick update on my brother, she has been served her court papers. She told him at the beginning that he could not see his child. She has also been getting more and more crazy by the day, quite literally. Multiple authorities have actually seen her becoming a little mentally unhinged and so overprotective, obsessive over the child, and she was also almost hurt the child by throwing him up and down like apparently he liked it at 5 weeks old when you're not supposed to do that because it could actually snap their neck. Yeah, I'm saying this and trust me, when I heard that happen I almost went crazy. But nonetheless, she told him he could not see his child, so she was served papers by the sheriff that she is due in court because she is doing a lot of things that are illegal under the table, and he wants to see his child, and she is becoming more and more mentally unhinged. Suffice to say, I could get into it in another video, she's going kind of crazy. Literally, it's become very clear that she might be actually unsafe to be around the child, and I'm not even just making this up, I'm very, very serious. So he's battling through it. The lawyer, who's really, really good, said he sees this stuff all the time and that, as he said, she can run but she can't hide. And she has not responded to the lawyer's request for a court paper, so the sheriff actually had to come and serve her papers and have her sign off on them. She apparently refused to answer the door for like 40 minutes, and so that's just not looking good for her, and so we're pushing forward, and the court date has been set, so once the court date actually happens, I can give you guys a further update on what's going on. He's hanging in there, and I'm right behind him, supporting him 110%, and so are my parents. Last two comments, both by Masculine Maid. So Masculine Maid, you said, looking forward to orange juice fortified with leptin protein. Off my video, Transgenic Organisms. Very nice. Also, are alpha helices really shaped like this in the body? Yes, they are. So we've done there, so you can see when you take a 3D crystallography structure of a protein, that essentially gives us down to the atomic level structure of how a protein looks. That is exactly what an alpha helix in a protein looks like. And not only that, but this is what DNA looks like. The famous story of Watson and Crick finding the double helix structure of DNA. There's actually some controversy on whether they were the first ones to discover it, but nonetheless, yes, this is actually what it looks like, and we use techniques that we can allow us to see this on an atomic level for proteins, for instance, X-ray crystallography, and that's something I can go over in another video. I actually do a bit of X-ray crystallography myself. Crystallizing and getting the structure of a protein is very, very, very hard, just FYI, but it's a really fun technique if you get the structure. As for what's holding everything together, well, for DNA, what's holding the DNA together is not only the covalent bonds between the phosphate backbones, but what's holding the base pairs together is the hydrogen bond interactions between the base pairs, guanine to cytosine and thymine to adenosine. So there's many different types of things that can hold molecules together for proteins. It can be, again, hydrogen interactions. It can be hydrophobic interactions between side chains that have hydrophobicity. It can be electrostatic interactions between side chains, a side chain or an amino acid that has a positive charge, amino acid that has a negative charge. So there could be a lot of different things holding things together. So I hope that answers your question. Lastly, Masculine Made, you said good video. What is your opinion on Stardust and Barbar's argument that MGTOW shouldn't argue with feminists? You know, I guess when it comes to this, there's one side, there's one extreme, is that, okay, do not argue or even say anything to these feminists. And then there's the other extreme where it's like, we should just, we should bite back. We should totally put these feminists in their place. And I can see arguments from both sides. I honestly can. And sometimes I will argue with a feminist. Usually I know this sounds bad, usually it's in front of other people to prove a point, to basically out-logic them in front of other people, so that I don't assume I'm going to change the feminist point of view because they're so delusional. But if the other people around me can see the bullshit that this feminist is spewing, and I can out-logic them and show all the other people around me that, they're a hypocrite, that what they're saying is absolutely false, that they're a bully, etc., that hopefully can have an effect on the people, as I said, around us, and they can spread this type of knowledge, or at least can put a thought in their head of, holy shit, maybe feminism really isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe feminism is, a load of bullshit, and hopefully this can make a dent. This can make a dent in, pushing people against feminism to take it down. I don't know, maybe that's naive to think. I say it's okay to argue with feminists, but I'm going to choose the middle ground. Pick your fights wisely. Some feminists, it's just a waste of breath. There's a male feminist on my channel recently, and he's just like, oh, you MGTOWs, he called us he said MGTOW is an acronym for pricks, and that I must have a problem with women, and that blah, I'm just bitter, all this shit. I didn't even bother arguing with him because there's really no point. There's no point, one, it's on an online argument, and two, I'm not going to change his mind. He's just going to yell verbal epithets at me, and no one's going to get anywhere, and I'm not going to be able to prove a point to anyone around me who may not have made up their mind on feminism. On the other hand, when these feminists say, in Toronto, when they go to these men's rights activist rallies and try to pull the fire alarm, shame, and promote violence against men, yeah, you know what, at that point, I say you do need to stand up to them, because they're going to be shaming men in public. They're going to be putting people down, harassing them, bullying them, physical violence. And as I said before, sometimes you're going to have to help these men back up, pick them back up, and fight back for them, because they have nothing. They don't have enough energy. There's a bully on the playground. They're bullying a friend of yours. If you have the power, go over to what would you do? You'd go over to them and you tell that bully to shut his mouth, shut her mouth, and go away. You defend your friend. And so I really think it's a middle ground. It's very context sensitive. So I'm going to take more of the mid area on both those, I would say, extremes. Now on to the topic at hand. So Transcendence Part 6, and this is going to be about failure. And I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to say don't be afraid of failure, because how can you not be afraid of failure? That means you failed. That means the one thing that you wanted to do, you didn't succeed at. I'm not going to tell you that. What I'm going to tell you is that failing is that, one, it is okay to fail, and that, two, just because you fail does not mean that it is the end of the world. In fact, it doesn't mean that you still can't go on to accomplish your goal or any other goal that you want to accomplish. So at this point, you said goodbye to your old self. You put off those chains. You are going forward on whatever mission, whatever goal that you want to accomplish. And so, at this point, you're going to fail. It's a fact of life. You can't have a 100% success rate. No one can. So I want you to get comfortable with failure. But the word failure has such a bad connotation. No. I want you to get comfortable with having to repeat, rinse, wash, repeat. I want you to get comfortable with having to practice something over and over and over again. So that each time you fail, no, that is not a failure. That is just you practicing and making yourself even better for the next time. It's not failure. It's just simply repeating and practicing over and over again. So I want you to get comfortable with practicing. As I said before, we are really collages, amalgams of what we consistently do day in, day out, not of what we want to be in 5 years or what we think about being or where we want to be, because as good as those are to set goals, those are just thoughts. They're thoughts, and if they're not put into action and they're not put into reality, then that's all they are. Oh, this is where I want to be in 5 years. Okay, so what are you doing today, tomorrow, the next day, in 1 year, in 10 years? What are you doing day in and day out so that someday in 5 years you might get to that goal? We are a collage of things and habits that we consistently do day in and day out. So it's not what you think about doing. It's what you fucking do every single day. So you have to be consistent in whatever you want to do. You have to be consistent. Now, I'm not going to say that you need to do it 7 days a week, 365, 24/7, every minute of every day. No. You need to rest, and I've been over this before. But if you have a goal, say, if you want to work at anything, physicality, mentality, whatever, you have to do it on a semi-consistent basis. So, for instance, I'll go back to the gym. You know, the working out has to be a consistent thing. It is not, there's no destination. It's just a journey, right? If you work out for 3 months and you get really jacked in really good shape, you've reached that goal, right? And then if it's a destination, then you stop. But you can't stop working out because your body will just revert back. You'll get fat, you'll get lazy, you'll lose all your gains. No, it is something that you have to consistently do day in and day out for the rest of your life. So, set aside time and schedule Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, whatever days, hours that you need to schedule, and set aside time to simply work at whatever it is that you want to work at. For instance, I'm reading a book right now on basic economics. I have it near my bed, and so every night when I get in my bed, I know that when I get in my bed, I need to read so many pages of that book before I go to bed. And sometimes I'm feeling lazy, I just don't want to, but it is a schedule, it is something that I have to do, and I'm doing it over and over and over again, so eventually it'll be habitual. Well, I'll get in my bed, and I won't be able to go to sleep until I read a book, until I read this economics book or whatever book I'm reading. Remember, we have to consciously do it, and then it can become a subconscious habit. So schedule the time to practice. Remember, each time that you, quote-unquote, don't accomplish this goal, each day that you don't, that is not you failing. That is simply you practicing and honing your skills to be that much better at it the next day. There is no failure. Throw out that word. There is simply another opportunity to practice and to get better. So schedule whatever it is that you want to do and stick to that schedule no matter how hard it is. If it makes you write it down, if you have to set an alarm, whatever. Set a schedule, and every time when your alarm goes off, that means you have to go practice at whatever it is that you're doing. Keep track of your progression. Anything, whether it be trying to gain knowledge, trying to get more physically fit, keep track of your progression in some type of spreadsheet or any type of journal. So for instance, for lifting, I keep track of, how much weight I'm doing, the reps I'm doing, how I'm feeling, my weight, my body composition. I keep track of it in an Excel spreadsheet. And so I can track my progress, see any dips, see anything that I need to modulate in order to get to where I want. I also keep track of my diet. And at first this was really hard, but now I think it's kind of fun. It's like a science project. My body is a science project. And so you can actually have palpable results to keep yourself on track. But not only that, but to show yourself, hey, when I'm feeling down, I can look and I can see, holy crap, I've accomplished something. No matter how down I feel right now, the doesn't lie. If it's something more mental or knowledge focused, keep a journal. Start writing down facts. Go over things in your head every day. Repeat. Go over things and say, okay, now I know this. Remember, it's going to take time. It's going to take repetition. So for me, for instance, when I was trying to learn all the different histone proteins and modifications, every single day in my journal, I would write down the different modifications over and over and over again. Then I would write down the sources to those modifications, what papers found it, over and over and over again. And I would just keep writing it over and over again and adding to the knowledge base of the journal. And through writing, for me, by writing down, that made the knowledge really stick in my head. And I could see through my journal that I was making mental progress and that I was remembering things. And if I ever, forgot something, I was interesting. Since I wrote it down in my journal, I could just go back to that page. I could see the writing and it would immediately just trigger the memory and it would come back to me immediately. It was like riding a bike. So even when I quote unquote forgot something, all I needed was a slight reminder and that would open up the doors again. Keep some type of log, something that you can hold, something that is palpable, that you can see your progress, and something that will keep you progressing, because you're like, I made this much progress, but I'm not there yet. And so you can see that you still need to make more progress. And that'll shake you out of apathy. And as I said before, I hate the word failure, but don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail and be patient, because success, whatever goal you have, it's going to take a while. And there's going to be a lot of long nights. There's going to be a lot of cold nights. There's going to be a lot of depressing down days when you feel like you are getting nowhere, but you feel like you are on square one. The funny part was, in my PhD, they don't tell you that the first 2 years you're working on your PhD, you're trying to find a project, you're trying to get that initial data, those are the hardest years, because you fail so much. You're growing into a scientist. You don't know the techniques very well. You are trying to get data. You're trying to get your initial project off the ground, and you have really no momentum. Once you build momentum on a project, it becomes kind of easier mentally and data-wise. But for the first 2 years, they don't even tell you. Like, I failed day in, day out. Every project I touched failed project, and I was like, yeah, but you might not want me to help you, because everything I touch, I automatically fail at. And there were a lot of, dark days. I remember calling my parents, just saying, I just felt like a fuck up all the time. I said, I'm getting nowhere. My projects are getting nowhere. Everything I do, I seem to fail. Maybe I'm just not meant to be a scientist. I almost gave up. I almost dropped out. I did. I said, maybe I'm just not good at this. I thought I was. I thought I had a passion for science. I still did, but clearly I thought maybe my passion just wasn't paying off, and that, wasn't for me. I just wasn't meant to be the scientist that I wanted to be. But my parents kept me going. They kept me going. They said, no, this is what you want. This is what you are meant to do. And they saw something in me that I just couldn't see. And when this happens, I ask you to reach out to other people that know you. They can see things. They can see more clearly whether or not you should keep on your path. And they can also inject a little more positivity than you can see, because you're down in the ditch. You're down in the ditch. You can't see past the next day when you're failing day in and day out. But sometimes not only is it good to lean on people, but it's also good to ask other people who have not as biased of opinion, that can see that maybe you are progressing even if you don't think you are. But back to it, don't be afraid to fail. It's going to take a long time to succeed. It took me 2 years to get a single piece of data that I was actually proud to put up in front of my lab. 2 freaking years. So you ask, okay, well, if I don't have these positive people, what's going to keep me going in these really, really low times? How am I just not going to become apathetic and give up? And that is a slippery slope. What kept me going, and what should keep you going, is the conviction that you actually love what you do. Deep down, okay, so maybe get away for a weekend when you're having a really frustrating week at whatever you're trying to accomplish. Get away from the job, get away from whatever goal you're trying to accomplish, and just think clearly. Go to a happier place. Think clearly. And if you still love what you do, if you can't imagine yourself doing anything else, or if you don't want to imagine yourself doing anything else, then that is the thing for you, and that is the thing you should pursue. Yes, you're going to keep failing for a long time, but if that's the only thing that you want to do, then you have to push through the bad times to get to the good times. No one ever said this was going to be easy. In fact, it's going to be very, very challenging. But as I've said before, nothing worth having in this world is easy. If everything was so easy, if these goals that you wanted were so easy, then everyone would be doing it. But that's right, not everyone's doing it. You know why? Because it's hard. It's challenging. And the last point that I think is probably the most important, especially with us MGTOWs, do not let the haters get to you. I'm not saying don't listen to them. No. Because I've said before, listen to them and use them as motivation. Don't let them get to you. And I know it's going to be hard because they're going to be saying shit, they're going to be putting you down, you just want to lash out. And pick and choose your fights, but at the end of the day, I would say don't lash out and don't let them get to you. Remember, they're just saying shit, they're trying to put you down because they're afraid, as I've said before, they are afraid that you actually might go out and accomplish your goal. And suddenly, if you do that, they're going to have to look at themselves for the first time. They don't want to look at themselves, right? They don't want to have to judge themselves. They're going to have to look at themselves for the first time. And they're going to have to actually ask themselves the very difficult question of, well, they accomplished their goal. They did that. Why am I still here? They want to keep you down in mediocrity because they are there too. And if you're there, then they have no one else. If you're there with them, then this gives them an excuse to be mediocre. It gives them an excuse to just be average and to not try to actually go out and achieve their own goals because everyone is down with them, right? They're not there to raise you up. They're there to pull you down. Why? Because if you're on their level, then you're all even. It is in their best interest. Remember, they're saying these things to you because it is in their best interest to keep you down. It is in their best interest to keep you and everyone else from progressing. They're a parasite. So listen to what they're saying, but listen to what they're really saying. They're scared that you could accomplish your goal, and they will for the first time have to look at themselves and judge themselves on why they didn't accomplish theirs. And what they're also saying is, I don't want anyone to progress because my ego is so shallow, is so fragile, that if anyone else progresses past me, that's going to make me feel really, really, really bad, and I just can't deal with that. Remember, they're weak. It comes from a place of weakness and fear. If anything, you should feel sorry for the haters. I do. I feel sorry for them because they are so preoccupied with spreading around their misery, spreading around their failure, trying to keep everyone down, that they've forgotten to actually try to go out and live a healthy, happy life for themselves. They're so busy trying to spread all this negativity, all this bullshit around, that they themselves live a depressing life. And they've forgotten to actually go get a life, but more than that, to go try to get a happier life. Now I'm going to end with a quote from Rocky Balboa, Rocky IV, when Sylvester Stallone is talking to his kid. And I think this has actually really sums up really well how you should respond to failure. So, Rocky Balboa. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits. And not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.